yeah, really nice to be here and looking forward to some nice conversations. Yeah.
Great. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's nice to see such a big crowd. It's as though there's an ATM machine inside, which is just dishing out 100-rupee notes. Well, what we know about the Hindi film industry is that we know that stardom is generally sexually transmitted, and it all stays within the family. But somehow, and we don't know how, once in a while, an outsider makes it big. And we really don't know how it happens, and we know that Kangana is among them. And we like her because we imagine she's the underdog, and she probably is. And
Imagine.
and most of us feel like underdogs, and we see a lot of us in her, and she probably is wondering, no, I'm not like you guys. But we probably see us in her. Well, Kangana, but before I begin, I want a favor. You've been interviewed so often by so many people, so many questions. I think by now you know all the questions and the answers you can probably deliver. Is there a question you've not been asked?
Well, there are many, but I want you to ask me your questions, and and I think not sort of start with what I want to say.
Okay,
I want to start with what you want to ask me.
Yeah. So I would like to start with. Yesterday, I was chatting with a Kannada writer, a novelist who has written a novel about an Indian family, and we were discussing how the Indian family is actually a cartel. Indian family is a mafia, and the objective of an Indian family is to ensure that its own people do well, and anybody who's in competition with that, just had it. You're basically screwed. Now, you were taking on, you were probably competition for some of the Bollywood families. I don't know if it's true. Did you face any politics, any opposition? Did you face the full onslaught of a classic Indian Punjabi family?
Well, I did, and I think it's very natural whenever you try and penetrate into a business which is not your family business. Other families do try and be the obstacles. But I think more than that, I can only speak from my experiences, and I come from a family, sort of a middle-class background. I do not know what really goes in, these fancy families, like, big filmy families. But keeping my struggle apart, I would like to say that today, being this person who's from like a middle-class family, and I see a lot of families around me, and I just feel that the glorification of the great Indian family, has to stop, because somewhere that is making us completely dependent on our families. Like there are a lot of expectations from how a mother should be or how a father should be. And like you said, examples like these, how some of the families support their interests, their children. And that does set a different standard and expectations for our youth. It just becomes a common thing to happen that, oh, his father is doing that, why my father can't do this? So I think, it has its own good side, which is very limited.
Yeah.
And mostly, I think, a bad side to it, which is making our youth extremely dependent, like I said.
Okay. People have many ideas about you, a lot of perceptions about you. Do you feed some of these perceptions in a very clever way?
Like, would you like to mention one of, like, how do you perceive me? I would like to know.
Like, for example, okay, let's talk about some of the perceptions that you had to deal with, that after Queen, I think everybody thought you're like them. And so what happened after that? What is the kind of reaction that you used to get?
After Queen, there was a phase in my life where, girls would just grab my face and, bury it in their breast and sob, we love you and all of that. So I think that got a little bit, a little too personal for me to deal with. But yeah, I just feel that being an individual who's working, I'd like to maintain a bit of a facade of a really unapproachable person. I like it like that because I just, I don't know, I don't like to be somebody who's easily approachable. Sorry, I hope I didn't bust my own, you know, badass perception, because I think I feel comfortable having an environment around me which is not easily penetrated.
We were actually supposed to talk about you as a woman and you as a successful woman.
We were supposed to.
Yeah, supposed to. So
Change your plan.
Yes, fine. But why would you find that a bit dull to talk about? Do you think it's sexist in its own way?
No, I just feel that I think the theme of the show was how women can break stereotypes and how they can be bold at their workplace. I personally feel, and I requested not to talk about it, because there are no different set of rules for men and women, you know. I, as a working woman, I find it extremely uncomfortable to be treated as someone who's a special needs individual. I am not, and I feel that every individual has two different, you know, sort of places in their psyche. Like one is your identity, and one is your individuality. Your identity is who you are as a person, what your name is, what your father's name is, what your religion is, what your class is, where you come from. That's your identity. That's not your individuality. Your individuality is clearly your set of skills. And I think professional realm is the only realm which allows you to go beyond that. So when I get a job, when I work as an actor, or writer, or tomorrow when I work as a director, I am not hired because I'm a girl, or because I am, you know, I belong to a certain religion. I am hired because of my set of skills. So I like to operate through that individuality. So I think if one has to exceed or succeed in their professional environment, then they simply have to operate through that place. So women have to stop having these expectations that they are women and they need different set of rules to break through or to be successful in at their workplace. So, well, I didn't want to talk about it, but now I see that we have already spoken about it, so ask me more questions about it.
Well, I'll come back to that, but I want to first deal with another perception, which is the small town business, you know, that one of your identities is that you're from a small town. So what is a small town? Before that, what exactly is a big town? What happens in a big town that doesn't happen in a small town?
I think, I personally find it very odd when some of these people who have these delusions of, you know, grandeur, who feel that they belong to big towns and big city, and they have the right to ridicule or, you know, sort of treat others badly. Do they even realize that hardly any state of India makes it to a developed economy? No, like hardly. So what they're talking about, if I live in a good house, I drive fancy cars, and I'm not aware of the person who's sleeping on the streets. Yes, I am different from that person in a very personal way, but in a larger scheme of things, I'm not so different than that person. At the end of the day, if we are talking about how the world perceives us, I am just an Indian. So we cannot marginalize what is the absolute. And hinterland India is the absolute. And whoever thinks that being in their you know, beautiful houses, they can run away from this reality, it's not true. And I mean, to say this, it's not even something very pessimistic or negative to come to terms with. It is just the matter of fact. If we do not acknowledge where we stand, how would we take steps to, or how would we even know how many steps we need to reach where we need to be? So I think it's important that we know who we are, where we stand, and I think this is just a concept of, you know, big towns in India, like I said. As a matter of fact, hardly, you know, we hardly have self-sufficient towns.
Yeah. So, but in terms of what does a small town do to a girl in terms of your mentality, your psychology, and how you perceive the world? What does living in a small town do? Is there anything special that
Yeah, I think it was a special upbringing. I've grown up in Himalayas. Only time I realized that we were different when people from the cities, they visited us and they asked for frappuccinos. And we were like, wo kya hota hai? You know, they're like, tumhare yahan pe frappuccinos nahi milte, cappuccinos, coffees. I said, nahi. So we used to take them to jungles and we used to pluck fresh raspberries and blackberries. And they're like, ye bhi acha hai. So, you know, I think every culture and every tradition has its own good sides and bad sides. Yeah, growing up, we didn't have frappuccinos, but we had wild raspberries in Himalayas.
Yeah. I want to come back to the question of perceptions and how you try to influence and how you build your personality and the myths around you. Can you tell us something more about that process? You as a public figure and how you create your persona, your own persona?
Well, I don't think I've really. I think it has happened before I've acknowledged it. It has happened before I've figured it out.
Okay.
So I wouldn't want to take credit for it.
Okay.
But for me, like one thing is for sure that I do not find anything embarrassing about my own existence. Like I said, I was. People try to shame me or blame me for, you know, so, like I said, coming from small town, not being able to speak English, not being able to dress up properly. But that didn't make me, you know, like sort of, it didn't shake anything in me. And I always operated the place of my individuality. Like even when, even today when I work, the first reaction I get from people is, oh, she's a delicate, beautiful girl. But as I go about my work, it just disappears. So women have to first believe in themselves as equals, you know, and then only they can get that sort of treatment. So, so today I can say with pride that, you know, after like 5 days into any schedule or into any films, I am treated like just like anyone else on the sets. So how I went about doing it is actually a long story. Maybe someday we should try and write a book about it.
Okay.
And yeah, and I think you can do a good job with it.
Oh, great. I already got a book offer, actually. I like this job. There was a time, not so far away, just 5 years, 8 years ago, glamorous celebrities could be islands, you know, especially in this city. When I would meet some film stars, they wouldn't be aware of anything that's going on. In fact, once when I was with Outlook or Times of India, I think, I had to interview Shah Rukh Khan. And I interviewed him in the van. And that was the time when the cola pesticide thing was going on. And he would get calls from actors asking now, what is this pesticide issue? Because Shah Rukh Khan was the only man who I think read newspapers. So they would ask him, and this guy can read and write, so he will explain whether. So, but that was just recently. But now, something has happened to the country. And even Ravina Tandon is almost like behaving like a political journalist. I mean, people know who the Prime Minister is, people know who the Finance Minister is.
I want to first ask, what do you mean even Ravina Tandon?
No.
See?
No, I can explain that, okay?
See,
it's just that she was...
I read her blogs, and I think she's a smart woman.
I didn't say
she
she's
absolutely
smart.
deserves to be a political...
I didn't say she was not smart at all. I just said that she has become politically very conscious, which was not, because I used to interview her 10 years ago, and the point is that...
10 years ago, I couldn't speak a word of English.
Yes.
A lot changes in 10 years.
Exactly, that is my point. Yeah. That's my point. Suddenly, we have a very politically conscious film industry where nobody is an island and everybody knows what's going on. Everybody has strong opinions about politics and society. So would you like to talk about how your interaction is with the outside world?
like I said, now I think women are a lot encouraged for their contribution, and they're asked about it. And like today, I'm called to this event, and I'm asked about these things that I love to talk about. If I'm not given this opportunity, you would never know this side of me. And if I'm not taken seriously as a girl who's talking about the issues, who I may or may not be fully aware of, but I can still talk about it, right? You don't have to, having an opinion doesn't mean that you have to be right or wrong. It simply means having an opinion. You can grow to have a better one, or even, feel against it after some time. But it's just about expressing yourself and having that healthy environment, which is a lot more conversational and constructive, and letting women participate in it. And I think men have always been there in some or the other way. And also the whole media culture and the media scene has changed a lot with social media and so many channels and websites. They need a lot more material. And I think that's what is aggravating this whole culture. But apart from that, I think I really appreciate how women are asked for their opinion. I really appreciate that I'm called here today, and I just got back from the US, and I've been just meaning to meet my people and just to have some sort of warm conversation. And I was just locked in my four walls of my house, and the last thing I wanted is to just start shooting. So it's a nice change, a nice environment for me to flourish as an intellectual individual, and let that growth happen, which is much needed at this point of time.
Okay. To make my point more clear, until recently, different kinds of Indians had different ways of escaping India, because India is a tough place, and especially for an actor, you lived in your island of, I don't know if you like the word Bollywood or Hindi film industry's island, and nothing could touch them. But today, that is not possible. Whoever you are, whether you're a billionaire, millionaire, film actor, you can't escape India. You have to deal with India. You have to survive India. So, so this question is not about you as an individual. How do you see politics, nationalism, everything being dealt with by the film industry? What do you see around yourself? Are there political camps in the film industry?
Well, I must say that film industry is quite, self-consumed and indulgent. We're a bunch of artists overtly sensitive and extremely emotional, trying to make films which hardly work, and I think we are the only industry which have, there is no guarantee. When you make cars, when you make soaps, you at least know what you've manufactured, how much of it will sell and how much of it will work, and what will work. There's a formula of making a bridge or making a plane. But when it comes to movies, we just go on making movies and just make more than, I don't know how many hundreds of them, but hardly handful of them break even, and hardly 2, 3, do good business. But we are still, going about doing our jobs. But I must say, artists are extremely vulnerable people, and we don't see politics as a point of discussion when we meet for filming gatherings. It's usually, something, storytelling or some sort of passionate, perspective of any artist. So yeah, politics is not what is casually discussed in our circles or at film parties, unless I'm not a filmy party person anyway, but I assume that that's not the...
What is the conversation like when in a typical filmy party? What do they talk about?
Just about personal stuff, just how you go to parties, what you talk about.
Okay.
Somebody's wife.
Well, I'm in Delhi, so they're all solving the problems of the world and Afghanistan. And
okay. No. At filmy parties, there are usually very superficial gossips that go on. But if you meet for a little bit more of a serious conversation, then obviously it's about filmmaking. Yeah, but I think as individuals, we do belong to this country. But I think in a very individual way, we all care about what is happening in the country. And what is happening in the politics and what our leaders are doing and where we are heading, we do take responsibility for that, because in a democracy, I think what a leader does is a reflection of what we have chosen for us. So, yeah, so, I mean, is that what you want to ask me? What are you exactly asking me?
Yeah, I think you've more or less answered.
Yeah.
I think I can get an idea of the conversation. Now we'll talk about when you are choosing a film. What is the process that goes on? You know, how often are you offered a film, and on what basis do you choose a film?
It just depends. It just depends. Sometimes it's just a story that excites you, or something that you want to do, or you want to develop on your own. And how often I'm offered a film depends on how I'm doing at my workplace. So if you've had a successful film, you have had a successful run, then you'll get a lot more offers. And then it's very fluctuating. It's just not like any other job or business. Artists live in a lot of uncertainty. It's just not me. Many technicians or people, we just sometimes just sit around at home and just wait for some project to come together, and then a set of, say, 50 people would get calls, and we'll have a project. And at times, for days, we won't, because that's the nature of our job. It's like I said, it's a lot of uncertainty, but then that's what artists are expected to have, and that's why we are, I think, usually celebrated people, because we do show a lot of faith in the face of uncertainty, and I think that's the most endearing human quality. I mean, after all, we are standing on a huge sphere, circling around a big fireball, and moving toward eternity, coming from infinity. I mean, so faith is, I think, one of the most endearing things that a human can show. I think that's what artists do.
Faith in yourself?
Faith in the fact that we will get jobs.
Okay.
That's what you meant, right?
Yes.
Like, how do you get jobs?
Yeah.
We can just hope that we do.
Okay. I also want to ask you about as people have many perceptions about acting. What are some of the popular perceptions that you feel are probably not true?
Well, I think everyone has their own process. So maybe some of them are, I can't really challenge any of these perceptions, because few actors can have that process, and I might not use that process. And some says that they go to the set and they switch on and switch off. I can't do that. I find it extremely disorienting to how to go away from my character and then come back to it. But yeah, my process is very different, and it's very elaborated and very long. When I was filming Rangoon, Vishal sir said that you are one of those people who over-prep. So
what do you do? What do you go through when you prep?
What do I do?
Yeah, what is the prepping process?
Oh, it's a long process. It's very boring, trust me. You wouldn't want to know about that.
Would you like to know? Would you want to know for a minute? Yeah, I think they're very interested in your work.
He said that you're like Pankaj Kapoor, and you prep like him. I was flattered. I thought it's a big compliment. But what I do is that I read my scripts as many times as I can. Then I almost sculpt a human being. It's a bit twisted. Please don't get scared of me. So I sculpt a human being, an imaginary human being, and I start to have conversation with that person and try to know that person. And at some point, that person penetrates me. It sounds gross as well, but that's how it happens.
This is very interesting. When you say sculpting, you mean mentally you sculpt, or do you do some sketches or something?
You can use sketches. You can use sketches to know the physical aspects of the character.
Okay.
And then there is a character sketch. Then you build that.
Okay.
Then you have a full-fledged human being before you. Then you start to talk to that person. That person will tell you everything about him, because only that person would know who that person is.
Okay.
And then just when you know everything about that person, then you ask them to be one with you, isn't it? Like, I mean, come on, we're artists.
No,
we're allowed a little bit of...
This is very fascinating, actually. So your imagination must be so powerful that you're able to imagine a director who is not exactly you, but it's still you, and you're able to have a conversation.
The character is in the material that you're given by the director or screenwriter. So you gather the material and then you sketch the character. So that's how you build a character. And I better be imaginative because I'm an artist. If
Yes.
I'm not, then I need to stimulate myself. Some use method also to stimulate themselves. So you can go into method. If it doesn't come easily, sometimes it comes easily, sometimes it takes a lot of time. You use a lot of techniques to get it, but then eventually you have to. If you don't, then you fail. It's, I mean, as simple as that.
Okay. And let's say in Queen, which is one of your most popular films, was there any aspect of the characterization that you found difficult to prepare for?
It is very difficult in the beginning because you start from zero, you've got nothing. So a lot of agitation and a lot of sort of discomfort between you and the character takes place. And then sometimes you just leave it for some time and just let it be because it's just so disfigured and you're just not able to make a human out of it. And you just let it be for some time and then go back to it, revisit it, or sometime it will come on its own. So it's a process. I'm not sure if it's a very comfortable place to talk about it because I'm anyway accused of being a psychopath. So I'm just refueling those rumors, I guess.
Is it true that you're a psychopath?
You never know.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they all say. Is there anything about your job that you don't like very much?
I don't like anything about my job, to be honest. I don't like to meet these crazy people who I have to, as my characters, I mean to say. I don't like the situations and the circumstances my characters go through. I don't like to emote to imaginary circumstances. I don't like to go into mud and water when it's 0 degrees. Honestly, I don't like anything about my job.
Go on, I think it was very fascinating. So how do you deal with it?
I remind myself of the bills that I have to pay.
You sound like us.
I am. I wish I had a rich father.
Great. Can you tell us about Rangoon and what?
Yeah, so Rangoon, so this girl that I was building, Julia, so she's one person who, I mean, actually lived an entire life and then, so to come to terms with that sort of drama and tragedy of someone else's, when you have enough drama and tragedy in your own life is very hard. So you're living like multiple lives, but it is still gratifying if it makes sense in the end. If you go about saying that, oh my God, this is how it happens. This is a replication of reality. This is a genuine human being. This is a genuine soul manifesting or acting through a body, through my body. So if that happens, it's gratifying. You feel a sense of achievement. You feel like, like how a sculpture makes a good sculpture and feels, that looks human. It does justice to humans' anatomy, does justice to humans' complexities and their motion and their movements. So this is what happens when you get a material and you expect a certain human out of that material. When you see it on screen and you're like, wow, I'm so good. So that's gratifying. And if you're not, then you're like, when is my next schedule? I need to start my next film. You do better.
Who in a film has the best job, according to you?
A director.
Why is that?
Because I think a director is, if we are humans, we believe in a God, right? A God who's just creating these unreal circumstances and having fun. That's what a director does. He never gets into rain or mud or water, never puts glycerin, never emotes. All he does is just has fun behind the monitor. So he's as good as being God while you're alive.
Great. Are you still comfortable, or do you want to? Should both of us walk around?
No. I'm just. It's like more like I'm just keen to talk to you all. No, seriously, I'm more comfortable like this.
Okay, great. There is one question I had, but it does sound a bit complicated to me, and I hope it makes sense to you. It's just that as an actor, you have to create very powerful emotions to deal with scenes which actually don't exist. And then you convince all of us that this emotion exists and it is there. It's all very powerful when we watch it. I don't know how it is when you do it, but your process is very powerful. But then life has its own set of emotions which might be very similar to what you've already acted out, what you've already made into a farce, or what was already a farcical thing, or something which you just made up an emotion. So do you, does being an actor sometimes interfere with your real life emotions, or is that a very overestimation of things? Is that seeing too much in things?
Oh yeah, like I said, over a period, this is what I've come to observe about myself, that actors over a period of time, by stimulating yourself to situations that don't exist, and also you have to sort of bring about that sort of sensitivity where you can almost behave mechanically to situations, like action, and you have to enact what you just did. You might have to do it 20 times. Over a period of time, you can grow to be emotionally unhealthy, like overly emotional or sensitive. I remember when I was playing a cancer patient in Kattibatti, and I was enacting my death scenes. I would cry all the time, even for the smallest things. So I'd become so sensitive that I had to literally take care of myself in a way that it doesn't affect my emotional health along with my physical health. So actors do get, most of us are twisted for a reason, because we tend to play with our mind. Like if you're given an imaginary situation, but the emotions aren't real. Emotions are real. You are drained by the end of the day, and those emotions, by enacting them over a period of time, you tend to emote. Either you emote to things which don't require that much of an intense burst of emotion, or you don't emote at all. It can cause some sort of imbalance of emotions, mental health in you. For that, I am very aware of myself, and I do a lot of meditation and a lot of, you can take breaks and you can relax, and it can cause a disconnect with your reality. If you keep doing characters after characters, you leave yourself so far behind that it's hard to catch up with who you are, and that's why most actors are in a time warp that, hello, that character you did 30 years ago and you're still, enacting that. Because it's not that that person isn't aware of it. It's just that who do they access now? I was 17, say I was 17 and I did some character, and now I'm 37, I'm playing the same character over and over again. I can't behave like a 17-year-old. I'd rather be in what I'm accepted as, right? So it's not that we don't know that. We know that, but what to fall back on? So when I left for Simran's schedule in August, I came back, and the first thing I did, I just caught up with everything that I left as Kangana, where I left my intellect, where I left my emotional baggage, where I left my family life, where I left my, financial life, or everything. I caught up with that. I am trying to bridge that gap of 2 months, which has been blanked out, where Kangana has been completely wiped out of the picture. It's been just about Praful Patel and finding her and sculpting her and just being her. So I need to let go of her now, So this sort of practice I do a lot. I do a lot of these exercises where I catch up with myself. And probably that's why most actresses or actors don't have a personality of their own, and they are just always playing someone. Because poor fellows have just sort of, abandoned themselves, and now they're not able to find it. So that is also one challenge actors face.
Well, you were saying that there are some exercises you do to catch up with yourself. Well, what are some of those exercises?
Like for example, for Praful Patel, I had to do 2-3 scenes which were very unfair on myself. Like, I had to be beaten up by 2-3 men. Then they were carrying me, and then they threw me out. And I was humiliated. I was crying in the car. And I felt, as Kangana, it was very hard to come to terms of that sort of brutality. So healing yourself, sort of talking it out, that it's a part of job, and sort of, a lot of healing process, and not letting that, again, if that remains in me, it can, I can't suppress that emotion. If I felt that I've been unfair to myself, and not to Praful, that's Praful's life, but she enacted it through me. So there are a lot of things that you need to deal with yourself, and make sure that they don't surface at a point then they're not required to surface. After Queen, I went into a phase where I started to believe that I am neglected and I'm ignored and I've had a huge breakup, unless I figured it out that it's not me. I've not had I was never meant to be married or things like that, So you can start to believe those superficial experiences as your own experiences and carry the baggage of those experiences as who you are, which I think is not a great way of living, because at 29, if I carry the baggage of my experiences, I don't think I'm going to make it to even 50. Yeah.
Which of the characters you have played is closest to you, to your real self?
Well, a part of them always belongs to you.
Yeah.
So you have to lend that part of, and that part is always the one that feels a grudge against those characters. Like, I liked how sensitive Tanuja Trivedi was, but how careless Datta was is also an aspect of my personality. So you need to lend a part of you to your character. Otherwise, that bonding doesn't happen. Like I told you, when you ask that person to be one with you, you need something to stick it together. You need to have like a serious transaction. Like, I give you this, you give me that. So you need to lend a part of your personality to your character.
Okay. In our regular lives, many of us act a bit. We have to do a bit of acting because we deal with situations that we don't want to be in. We deal with relationships which require a bit of acting, I suppose. I'm talking moments when we are not, we are being. So, do actors do that better than other people?
I don't think.
Okay.
I don't think. I think actors, like I said, I can't speak for everyone, but I feel actors are extremely sensitive. They can have a defense and some sort of some sort of facade to sort of make their way easy to, like I said, I like to project this image of an approachable person just so that I can have my space and there is no interference in the thought process, which is right now I'm consumed with, or maybe I want to be left on my own. So I like to, so people can have those sort of demeanors and they can utilize it to have some sort of benefit.
A long time back, I was interviewing Om Puri in his house, and he had to discipline his dog for some reason. He had to just say something to it. I'm telling you, he was so terrified. The dog was very sure it's going to die. He was so convincing, in the sense that he was being very dramatic, So, the thought just crossed my mind. So I was just wondering, I'm sure a lot of people won't be able to match that level of drama which Om Puri could at that moment to scare his own dog. I have one last question. What do you want from life? What do you want?
Well, it changes every minute. Like right now, isn't it? Like it changes. What we want from life is such a difficult question. See, eventually you just want to be mentally healthy, emotionally healthy. You don't want to go too far with your passion and obsession with your work just so that you keep your health at stake. You don't want to be so, driven by ambitions that just one lifetime is not enough. You just want to sit back and you just want to have that moment of gratitude every now and then. And I think that's the most amazing thing. And I want to be that person who lives also, not just in the pursuit of life, I guess.
Is it not the pursuit of life? That's so beautiful. But also, I told you that's the last question. I'm just cheating. Do you think sanity is a minority condition or is a majority condition? What I mean is that we have an idea of sanity, and everybody assumes that this means that most people are this. That's not very convincing when we look at life around us.
No, I think people who I research on, when I come across my characters, they're not superstars, they're mostly ordinary people, and they are so twisted, and their lives are so twisted that it takes so much more, than you can ever imagine you can give to any character. So I feel everyone has their own individuality, but we do cover ourselves up under, like I said, that facade of either sanity or something. We all have our own little, what you call it, thing to hide behind.
Yes.
And yeah, and then I think that most people hide behind the thing of sanity. But yeah, to sanity too has its own definition, isn't it? Like happiness has its own definition. Sanity has its own definition. What my parents think is sane, I don't think it's sane. I don't think they're being very smart.
So what is the definition of sanity? You said everything has a
my
definition.
parents are always too bothered about what other thinks of them, and they're just too, they're just too, sort of, like I said, have, they're, I don't know, they're just saving up for a day which will never come, and I just don't think it's very smart, but they obviously don't agree with me. And what I feel is smart is like pursuing what you want to do and just understanding yourself and being proud of yourself and loving yourself. Like they can't get their head around the fact that one can love oneself. They think you can love others, but you can't love yourself. So I don't think they're being sane, and they completely think that I'm not being sane. So, like I said, everyone has their own definition of happiness, sanity, what is right or what is wrong. So, which is fine. There are no rules.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We'll open the floor to questions.
Thank you.
I have some very specific requests. It's a good idea not to ask any personal questions because the literary festival, we keep it intellectual and meaningful. So what I'm saying is for Hillary Clinton and Kangana, don't ask anything about emails. They may not like it. And
why'd you assume I may not like it?
okay, you can. I was just told, so Kangana is just, now Kangana is fine with it now. So feel free. And also, because we don't have much time, we would like to listen to your opinions, but maybe it's a good idea to stick to the questions so that we can get a lot of questions in. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's wonderful seeing you, Kangana, live here. Wonderful. It's a pleasure. Kangana, let me tell you, you're one of the most intelligent women I've come across. And Manu Saab, even you. It's a pleasure. Kangana, question to you. What do you think about आज का जो दौर चल रहा है, the lady hater and the man eater and the woman eater? What do you think about this man and woman relationship in general? We bite each other.
What do you think of teeth?
Hate and jealousy, brutal betrayal.
Well, what you think about betrayal and brutality? Well, I think in general, if I have to speak about, like human emotions and experiences, it's been the same since Shakespeare. I mean, it's not gotten any more dramatic. So, I think as far as man, woman are concerned, their relationship in general is it's a relationship of tension, right? It's one relationship which is completely established. Like, I'm trying to be sober, please understand. It's based on tension. So yeah, when you're with your family, your parents, your sibling, it's another sort of a love. But the love that you share with a special someone is a different love. So there's a lot of jealousy, insecurity, and a lot of betrayals, and that lead to insane things. And like I said, we've all read it in Shakespeare, how mad and how insane can love, conquest, lust, and desire can go. If that answers your question.
It's actually quite a beautiful question. Now, and also it's very interesting what you said. I'm sure that's a view which is shared by most people. But then there's always this question, why should it be so tense between man and woman? Why can't there be... Yesterday we had a panel where someone made this point that why can't the man-woman relationship be a bit more playful?
Because it is based on the rush of blood, isn't it?
Is it because high stakes?
Because if there's no rush, then you literally become a friend, right? And when there's a rush of blood, the blood from brain runs to different organs, and it can't give enough blood to where it is required, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, come on, it's biological. I'm not making it up.
Any more questions? Yeah.
Hi, Kangana.
Hi.
I'll keep it very much relevant to the festival. Do you read? And if yes, which book? As of now, currently you are reading.
Yes, I read a lot, but when I'm free from my characters, which is very rare. But these days I am reading a book called Blink of an Eye. It's a book on film editing, and it's a really good book.
Yeah. So, okay, am I supposed to manage? Do you want to choose who you want to answer? Yeah, you can just point to.
Yeah,
you can
of
just.
course. Yeah, of course, use.
Yeah, you can. Shunali, please give
The gentleman there, yeah, sure.
Thank you for choosing me.
Yeah, after that.
You're welcome.
You just said that you don't like your job. There's a lot of issues with it. You don't like getting into the mud and things like that. If you were not to do this current job, what would you do otherwise?
I'd rather be a director.
Okay, so when's that happening?
Yeah, well, like I said, we always, try and go. There's always that next step that you want to take. But that doesn't mean that I cannot find, enough to unleash my creative forces where I already am. So at some point, yes, I would like to. I mean, as soon as I can, but then, yeah.
Okay, I'm just taking this opportunity to tell you that your journey from the Himalayas to the wild Mumbai and getting back to the roots, I think you'll be a very good director because I think you'll understand life and people very well.
Thank you.
And all the best to you.
Thank you.
You've already made a short film, haven't you? You've already made one
Yes.
short.
Hello, Kangana ma'am. I want to ask just one question. First thing I want to tell you, you are so beautiful.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I'm an engineer. I go every day to my job. I'm getting monthly salary. I'm fulfilling my deeds every day. I just want to ask one question to you. Ma'am, what is life?
What is life?
Yeah.
Life, like I said, like I just said, that we are literally standing on this is what I tell myself every morning, that who am I? I'm standing on this huge sphere, circling around a big fireball, and in the middle of apparently a place which doesn't have a beginning or an end, like literally, and we are moving towards eternity. So we don't have answers. We do not have answers, and the best is to know that we don't know. So I wake up every morning and I tell myself, and I tell myself, so what next? And then I go from there. I have nothing to lose. I'm anyway hanging in the middle of nowhere. So that probably, I think that's life. Yeah,
Hi,
ma'am. Yeah.
I have a question for you here.
Let me take her question. Just a second.
Do your contemporaries get threatened by you? Or are you threatened by them?
Well, I think, do they get threatened? I probably can't answer on their behalf. But when I was working my way up, I did not feel any threat because I think I was quite inconsequential. I remember when I was struggling, people used to ask me, so who do you think will make it really big, as this leading lady of our generation, Deepika or Sonam? And I used to say, me. And they used to laugh. Like, of course, you're being very funny and all of that. And, so I obviously was no competition, so I don't know what they felt about me. But right now, I'm not insecure of anyone because I do not get into anybody's territories. I have a different place of mind, and I do my work. I work with different sort of, directors and in different kind of films. So I have pretty safe place for me.
You're doing good.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
We'll take one last question.
Mine. I wanted to know, we all know the industry is a rather misogynistic, patriarchal sort of a place. And you as a woman must unsettle men very easily. You're intellectually coherent and you are quite individualistic. Do you feel that a lot, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking to see how scared and how frightened people can, get of me just when I start to talk, especially men. I don't find women getting so threatened, but I can see, and they're not even in control of their expressions. It's like, they start to get really frightened, as if I've just turned into a ghost. But from a beautiful girl, who just turned into a ghost. So I don't like it. I hope I can do something to comfort them, but at the same time, I cannot change who I am. And if that's going to be an obstacle in my way of getting what I want, I'm not going to let that be. I'm going to be myself. If I am maybe too good or maybe, beyond your IQ, I can't help it, and I just let that be. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kangana. Thanks.